At 30,000 feet, silence turned to screams when the engine burst into flames. But hours earlier, Cynthia, the lead flight attendant, had mocked the Andersons, an African-American family, accusing them of faking first-class tickets. She refused their daughter a blanket, ignored the father's warning about strange engine noises, and laughed when passengers complained. Now, as oxygen masks dropped and the crew panicked, the same man she belittled was the only one who could save the flight. What happens when prejudice blocks survival and justice comes mid-air? Stay with this story, because in 30 seconds, you'll question everything you thought you knew about power. David Anderson adjusted the collar of his pressed navy blazer, trying to steady his nerves. Beside him, Monica clutched Jade's hand, proud and protective. The family had arrived at JFK Airport 2 hours early for their transatlantic flight to London, where Jade, just 14, was set to receive an International Robotics Award for her design of a disaster relief drone. Their invitation had come from the U.S. Department of Education, complete with first-class tickets and access to the premium lounge. But as they approached the glass doors of the VIP area, a voice sliced through the air. "Excuse me, this lounge is for premium passengers only," said Cynthia Monroe, the lead flight attendant assigned to their flight, her smile tight and eyes scanning their clothes. "You may be looking for the general boarding area." David calmly presented their boarding passes. "We're flying first class on Atlantic 2187. Cynthia barely glanced at the tickets. "These could be fake," she muttered, loud enough for others in the lounge to hear. "I've seen this trick before. Print out fake invites, act entitled. I'll call security to verify." Monica's grip tightened on Jade's hand. Jade looked up, confused. "Mom, what's going on?" Cynthia had already pulled out her radio, speaking into it sharply. "Security to VIP lounge, potential fraud." Passengers nearby glanced over. Some looked away. Others snickered. David's voice was calm but firm. "There's no need for this. We were invited personally by—" "By whom?" Cynthia interrupted. "You people always think a story will get you in." The phrase "you people" echoed louder than the airport announcements. Monica inhaled sharply. Jade's cheeks flushed with embarrassment and confusion. 2 security guards approached, one resting his hand near his belt. "Problem here?" "They don't belong here," Cynthia snapped. "Probably used someone else's tickets." Before David could respond, a third figure entered the scene. An older gentleman in a navy suit with an airport badge clipped to his chest. He glanced at the commotion, then froze. "David Anderson?" he asked, eyes widening. "The David Anderson, FAA Task Force leader on the Avionics Safety Initiative?" David turned slowly. "Hello, Mr. Reynolds." The guard straightened. Cynthia blinked in confusion. "This man is a national advisor on flight safety," Reynolds said firmly. "And this is his family. What exactly is going on here?" Cynthia stammered. I didn't recognize." "You didn't need to recognize," Reynolds cut in. "You just needed to respect." Jade's eyes sparkled as Cynthia's face drained of color. David gave a slight nod, gently ushering his daughter inside. But the damage had been done. The cabin air was crisp, but the atmosphere tense. As the Andersons entered first class, a hush swept the aisle. Some passengers stole glances. Others didn't bother hiding their curiosity. Their eyes moved from David's steady posture to Monica's composed grace, to Jade's bright eyes peeking from behind her mother. Whispers followed them down the aisle like contrails. Cynthia Monroe, now in full uniform, stood at the door with a customer service smile too polished to be sincere. "Welcome aboard," she said, her tone sugar-coated with forced cheer. "Please, right this way. Seats 3A, B, and C." Monica caught the flash of recognition in Cynthia's eyes the moment she remembered the lounge scene, but the smile didn't flicker. Just beneath the surface, Monica sensed something colder than before. As they settled in, Monica gently helped Jade adjust her seatbelt. The girl pressed her face to the window, hiding her embarrassment behind the view of airport traffic below. David placed their carry-on carefully, his every movement measured, deliberate, trying to shield his family from more stares. Moments later, Cynthia breezed down the aisle with a tray of welcome drinks. She smiled warmly at the elderly white couple in 1A, offered extra napkins to a man in 2D, and even helped a child in 2B unwrap his blanket. Then she passed the Andersons. Monica raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me, miss, may we have—" "We're currently preparing for takeoff," Cynthia replied crisply, her tone clipped. "Service will begin once we reach cruising altitude." 2 rows up, the man in 2D sipped his orange juice. David didn't speak. He simply adjusted his watch and opened the safety card like any passenger. But Monica's eyes stayed on Cynthia as she passed. Jade, trying to distract herself, fumbled for the in-flight headphones. Her jack was empty. She reached up and pressed the call button. Cynthia returned swiftly. "Yes? I think I'm missing my headphones," Jade said softly. "They're in the pouch," Cynthia said without checking. "They're not," Jade replied, lifting the pouch to show it was empty. Cynthia exhaled through her nose. "I'll check with the back. Please be patient." She walked away and didn't return. The seatbelt sign dinged. The engines rumbled to life. David leaned slightly toward the window, eyes narrowing. There it was again, a low, whirring pitch from the left engine. Subtle, but off. He tapped his thumb against the armrest. Monica noticed. "What is it?" she asked. "Probably nothing," he murmured. But his brow was furrowed. The plane began to taxi. Outside, the runway waited. Inside, tension brewed. The aircraft climbed steadily, piercing through low-hanging clouds. The seatbelt sign was still on, but the subtle rocking of the plane had begun to level. First-class passengers sipped their drinks, flipped through glossy magazines, or tapped distractedly on tablets. The soft chime of the cabin intercom indicated they'd reached cruising altitude. David's eyes, however, weren't on the seatback screen. He leaned slightly toward the window again, head tilted, his fingers gripping the armrest in a familiar calculating rhythm. That noise. It was back. A hollow hum, slightly off pitch, seemed to pulse from the left engine. He closed his eyes and listened. Whir, whine, whir. The pattern was inconsistent, like a note just slightly out of tune. Monica noticed his focus. "That sound again?" David nodded. "It's not normal. Left turbine. Could be a pressure imbalance or early compressor stall." She frowned. "Should you?" "I'll say something," he said, unbuckling his belt as the fasten sign turned off with a ping. David pressed the call button. Moments later, Cynthia arrived, clipboard in hand. "Yes?" she asked curtly, eyes not quite meeting his. "I've logged over 4,000 hours in the air, including systems diagnostics," David began calmly. "The sound from the left engine suggests—" She cut him off with a practiced smirk. "Sir, our engines are maintained daily by certified professionals. Unless you're one of them, I'd advise you to enjoy the flight." "I'm actually a certified systems engineer for the FAA," he said, his voice still steady. "Oh, so now you design planes too?" Cynthia said loudly, her voice carrying 2 rows up and back. "If you're so concerned, maybe you should have flown it yourself." There was a beat of silence, then laughter. A white man in 2D leaned around his seat, grinning. "Relax, pal. Sit back and enjoy the champagne. You're in first class now, not flight school." A woman in 1A chuckled. "Next thing you know, he'll want to inspect the cockpit." David felt his ears burn. Jade shifted uncomfortably, retreating into her hoodie. Monica's lips pressed into a line, but she said nothing. Her hand rested protectively over Jade's. "I only spoke up for safety," David said quietly. "Well, thank you for your concern," Cynthia replied mockingly. "But we're good up here." She turned on her heel and walked away. The laughter faded, replaced by the sound of silverware clinking and pages turning. No one looked at the Andersons again, except one. 3 rows behind, in seat 6F, near the back of first class, a woman in a nondescript gray hoodie lowered her phone from the side of her seat. Her screen showed a still recording video app, red dot blinking. She had captured every word, every smirk, every chuckle, and she wasn't smiling. Instead, she quietly typed something into her notes app. Flight 2187, JFK to LHR, Cynthia Monroe. Potential escalation. Monitor further. She saved the file under a folder labeled Bias Watch, Live Flight Logs. The woman leaned back, closed her eyes and listened, just like David had. Her job wasn't to fly the plane. It was to watch how it flew apart when people failed each other. And on this flight, the story was only beginning. The calm was shattered by a sudden jolt. The aircraft lurched sideways, hard enough to rattle every overhead bin. Gasps filled the cabin as glasses toppled, tablets slid off tray tables, and a muffled cry rose from the rear. The fasten seatbelt sign flashed again with a shrill ding, followed by a mechanical voice. Ladies and gentlemen, please return to your seats and fasten your seatbelts immediately. David instinctively reached across to steady Jade, but it was too late. The girl had been reaching for her headphones when the turbulence hit. The force knocked her sideways, slamming her into the armrest. She cried out, her nose bleeding instantly. Monica caught her before she fell further, cradling her in panic. David pressed the call button, once, twice, 3 times. No response. He unbuckled and half stood, waving to a flight attendant down the aisle. We need assistance here. My daughter is hurt. Cynthia appeared finally, her expression unreadable. She glanced at Jade, then at the blood staining Monica's scarf. Her tone was cold. Sir, we've asked all passengers to remain seated. Turbulence protocols are in effect. She was thrown, David said, trying to keep his voice steady. She's bleeding. We need tissues, ice. If you continue creating a disturbance, Cynthia interrupted, I'll have no choice but to escalate. This is your final warning. Monica stared at her in disbelief. She's a child. Flight safety comes first, Cynthia said, lips tight. Stay seated. As she turned to walk away, a voice cut through the tension. Absolutely not. A woman rose from seat 6F, Elena. She stepped into the aisle with her phone still in hand. Her tone was sharp and loud enough for half the cabin to hear. You ignored them when they warned about the engine. Now you ignore a bleeding child? I'm recording this. Keep going. Cynthia froze mid-step, spinning around. Ma'am, please take your seat. No, Elena said. You want to call security? Go ahead. But this is going live. Every second of it. Passengers turned to look now, some for the first time. Murmurs began to ripple through the cabin. A man in 2D, the same one who laughed earlier, looked uncomfortable now. A flight attendant farther down paused, unsure whether to intervene. Jade whimpered quietly, face still buried in Monica's lap. David didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on Cynthia. For the first time since boarding, the power in the cabin shifted, and someone had chosen to stand with them. Within minutes of Elena stepping into the aisle, her live stream had gone viral. A clip of Cynthia dismissing a bleeding child while flashing a fake smile was now circulating on social media. Hashtags like #Justice for Jade and #Flight 187 exploded. Thousands were watching. Dozens of phones across the aircraft buzzed simultaneously. Passengers turned. Some whispered. Others stared directly at Cynthia, who now looked less composed and more cornered. A different flight attendant, a younger woman named Mia, stepped forward cautiously with a first aid kit. She knelt beside Monica and Jade, handing over antiseptic wipes and tissues. I'm so sorry, she whispered. Let me help. Then she looked up at David and paused. Her eyes widened. Wait, David Anderson? He blinked. Yes? Task Force Delta 2015, the mid-air corridor reroute between Frankfurt and Cairo? David gave a single nod. That was me. You're the engineer who saved 34 flights from a collision, Mia said, awe in her voice. The emergency override protocol. That was you. Nearby passengers perked up. Wait, I read about that, a man said. He's that David Anderson? Another murmured. Cynthia's mouth parted slightly, her eyes darting from face to face. David didn't move. He was calm, steady. "I tried to warn you about the engine," he said quietly. Before Mia could say more, Cynthia snapped back into action. She tapped her radio. "Cockpit, this is Lead Attendant Monroe. I need immediate security presence in first class. One passenger is impersonating an FAA official and disrupting flight operations." "Impersonating?" Elena barked. "You just heard a colleague confirm his identity." "I'm not arguing with a phone camera," Cynthia said coolly. "Safety protocols must be enforced." 2 minutes later, the curtain parted. 2 men in dark uniforms stepped through. Federal air marshals. One approached David. "Sir, I need you to come with us." Monica stood up. "This is absurd. He's not the threat here." Elena moved into the aisle again. Live stream still rolling. "Tell the world why you're removing the man who just saved your lives." The air marshal didn't blink. "Ma'am, step aside." David raised a hand gently. "It's okay." He looked straight at Cynthia. Her arms were crossed, chin lifted, and for the first time there was something close to fear in her eyes. Before the air marshals could escort David away, Elena stepped forward and pulled something from her jacket pocket. Not a phone, not a passport. A press badge. "Name's Elena Cruz," she said, holding the laminated ID high. "Investigative journalist with Equity Watch. I've spent the last 9 months undercover documenting racial bias in air travel. This flight was part of a pattern, and now you're all part of the story." Cynthia's expression froze. "I've got footage," Elena continued, voice rising, "of a decorated aviation engineer being mocked, a child injured and ignored, and a flight crew abusing their authority. This stream's been live for 20 minutes. You think people aren't watching?" One of the air marshals blinked. "She's press?" "Yes, she's press," David said calmly. "And she's right." In the cockpit, Captain Ray Stanton's earpiece crackled. He frowned, turned a dial, and listened carefully. "This is Corporate HQ," came the voice on the line. "We're seeing a situation develop on Flight 2187. Confirm David Anderson is aboard?" Stanton blinked. Yes. He's being removed by cabin crew per internal incident report." "Reverse that immediately. You are to allow Mr. Anderson cockpit access if he deems there's a systems concern. That's a direct order from the CEO." Stanton's eyes widened. "Copy." He turned to his co-pilot. "Get Monroe up here." Back in first class, Cynthia's radio chirped. "Monroe, cockpit, report immediately." She pressed the button. "Copy that." She turned to Elena and David, her expression tight. "Don't move. I'll sort this out." She disappeared behind the curtain, shoes tapping sharply on the galley floor. Inside the cockpit, Captain Stanton laid it out. "Corporate saw the video. They want him up here." Cynthia didn't flinch. "The woman's not real press. She faked a badge to create chaos. I've seen this scam before." "She was verified on the live stream by her outlet," the co-pilot interjected. "It's all over Twitter." "Doesn't matter," Cynthia said. "If you bring him in, you risk escalating passenger anxiety. He's already disrupted the cabin. That's my call as lead attendant." Stanton hesitated. His fingers drummed on the console. "Are we sure the engine issue's legit?" "Just turbulence," Cynthia lied smoothly. "He's not trained on this aircraft model. He could make it worse." Stanton sighed. "I'll note your objection, but HQ wants a clean landing," she cut in. "And so do I." She turned and left the cockpit, not waiting for approval. Back in the cabin, David sat quietly. Elena glanced over. "They called her up," she whispered. David nodded and waited. But Monica noticed it first. Cynthia had returned, alone. And with her silence came the weight of another door slamming shut. The cabin plunged into darkness. Overhead lights flickered once, then went out entirely. Gasps rippled through the aircraft. The in-flight entertainment screens blinked off. The low hum of electrical systems gave way to silence, broken only by the whine of wind outside and the distant rumble of turbulence. Then came the bang, a deep, shuddering boom from the left side of the aircraft. The plane jolted violently. Oxygen masks dropped like ghostly vines, bouncing against seats. Screams erupted. Someone shouted for help. Trays flew. A child sobbed behind row 8. In the cockpit, alarms blared. "Engine 1 just failed," the co-pilot yelled. As the plane tilted, he was thrown sideways, slamming his shoulder into the control panel with a sickening crack. "Martinez!" Captain Stanton called out. No response. With one hand on the yoke, he grabbed the intercom. "Lead flight attendant to the cockpit, now!" But it wasn't Cynthia who arrived. It was Mia. "Captain," she panted, "he's here." "David Anderson, the engineer. He's willing to assist." Stanton hesitated. Then the name clicked. "David Anderson? Captain Zero?" Mia blinked. "Yes, sir." He flipped the switch. "Send him in, now." Back in first class, David was already moving. Monica gave his hand a squeeze, her eyes wide with fear, but filled with belief. Jade clung to her mother, trembling but watching her father with something else in her gaze, wonder. As David stepped into the cockpit, Stanton turned. For a moment, both men froze. "Captain Zero," Stanton said, a stunned half-smile forming. "I was in your training session at Wright-Patterson 2012. You taught us how to land with dead instruments." "Let's hope you remember," David replied, sliding into the co-pilot's seat. "Engine 1's gone, electrical's unstable, and I lost Martinez," Stanton said, grim. David scanned the gauges. "We're in a storm corridor, wind shear's high, but the pitch drop, that wasn't turbulence. That was a compressor breach." Outside, lightning painted the cabin in blue-white flashes. Inside, the world watched. Elena's live stream had reached global trending status. News outlets picked up the feed mid-flight. Aviation hero ignored aboard Flight 2187. Passenger live streams potential mid-air disaster. Systemic racism nearly dooms hundreds. But none of that mattered now. Only the sky ahead. Jade, still nestled against Monica, stared toward the cockpit door. "Is Daddy going to save everyone?" she whispered. Monica pulled her close. "He already is." Inside the cockpit, sweat beaded down Captain Stanton's forehead. The storm outside roared louder, buffeting the plane with wind bursts that made the yoke tremble in his hands. David scanned the control panel. "The backup bus is failing. We'll lose both navigation and pitch control in under 4 minutes." "What do we do?" Stanton asked, voice tight. "We initiate a manual reset sequence, reroute the power through the auxiliary feed, bypass the fried relays. I've simulated this before, but it's never been done mid-air." David's fingers moved with precision, already unscrewing a panel beneath the console. Before Stanton could respond, the cockpit door burst open. Cynthia stormed in, eyes blazing. "Absolutely not," she snapped. "I won't allow an unqualified passenger to tamper with flight systems." Stanton looked up sharply. "He's not just a passenger. He's the one who taught me how to fly through electrical failure." She pointed at David. "He's the one disrupting this entire flight. You want to let him rewire the plane?" David didn't flinch. "Captain, if I don't complete this reset, we lose flight controls." "I said no," Cynthia hissed. "I don't care who he is. I'm still lead authority in the cabin. I won't have—" "Enough," came a voice from the cabin doorway. It was Mia. She held up a phone. "I need you to hear something." Cynthia rolled her eyes. "We don't have time for—" Mia hit play. A voice, Cynthia's, crackled through the speaker. "I don't serve people like that unless I absolutely have to. Let them fly coach if they're lucky." The air in the cockpit went still. David's jaw clenched. Mia's hand didn't shake. "I recorded this 3 months ago," she said evenly. "I was told to stay quiet. But now, you just tried to stop a man from saving 300 people because of your hate." Captain Stanton didn't hesitate. He reached over, flipped a switch, and activated the cabin intercom. The entire aircraft heard Cynthia's words. Clear, undeniable, damning. Gasps echoed through the cabin. Then silence. Then voices. Outrage spread like fire. Passengers stood. Phones rose. Someone shouted, "She said that? On this flight?" In first class, Monica stared straight ahead, her lips trembling, not from fear, but from vindication. Beside her, Jade whispered, "Mom, everyone heard it." Monica nodded slowly. "Yes, baby, they did." In the cockpit, Stanton turned to David. "Get under the panel," he said. "We're resetting this bird." And for the first time since takeoff, David smiled. The wind howled like a freight train outside the cockpit. David lay partially beneath the console, tools in hand, sweat pouring into his eyes. Wires sparked. Circuits hummed as he clipped and reconnected lines with surgical precision. Above him, Captain Stanton read out system statuses like a prayer. Stabilizer voltage, flickering. Altimeter, resetting. Engine 2, holding, but barely. David's voice was calm. "Bypass is live in 10 seconds. He connected the final lead. "Now." Lights across the control panel blinked, then steadied. The cockpit system surged back to life. Artificial horizon reappeared. Navigation returned. Auto trim engaged. They weren't out of the storm, but they weren't blind anymore. David pulled himself back into the co-pilot seat, breath ragged. "That was phase 1. Now we fly her out of this mess." Stanton glanced at the storm radar. "We've got a 10-mile corridor through the back end of the system, but crosswinds are 70 knots. David leaned in. "We go low. Terrain skimming, bayonet pattern. Military maneuver, worked over Kandahar in '07. We use the wind shears gaps like wave cuts." Stanton hesitated. "With civilians on board? Better than exploding at altitude," David said. Stanton gritted his teeth. "You lead, I follow." They dropped altitude fast. Outside, lightning fractured the sky, and rain lashed the fuselage like bullets. The aircraft shuddered as it dipped below the thickest cloud layer, flying dangerously close to ocean whitecaps. "Speed to 310, David called. "Trim angle 4.2, brace for shear in 3, 2. The plane jerked. Jade screamed. Overhead bins popped open, bags tumbling, but the jet held course. In the cabin, passengers clung to armrests and each other. Cynthia had vanished from view, replaced by Mia and 2 other attendants who moved swiftly, securing loose items and comforting crying passengers. Monica held Jade tightly, murmuring calming words even as her own heart pounded. Back in the cockpit, Stanton called out, "We're nearing breakpoint." David checked pressure gauges, and his eyes widened. "The cabin wall integrity, lower starboard, is peaking. Pressure differentials at 28. If it hits 30, Stanton didn't need the rest. "Brace for decompression? Not if we punch out now." David grabbed the controls. "Bank right. Use the wind. Now." Stanton followed. The aircraft tilted hard, slicing through a narrow cross-current in a perfect diagonal arc. Wind slammed against one side, then released. Like emerging from underwater, the turbulence vanished. The storm fell behind. The pressure dropped, but stayed just below the critical threshold. David exhaled. "If we'd stayed in there 30 seconds longer," he began. "The hull would have ruptured," Stanton finished. In the cabin, the lights flickered, then stabilized. Passengers slowly uncurled from their seats. Some clapped, others cried. But all of them looked forward now, toward the front, toward the man who had taken the yoke and steered them out of death. The wheels hit the runway with a bone-jarring thud. Screeching brakes, reverse thrusters, and the final roar of the lone functioning engine echoed across the tarmac. The aircraft hydroplaned slightly before lurching to a halt. Emergency vehicles surrounded them in seconds, lights flashing like fireworks against the gray Icelandic dawn. Inside, stunned silence gave way to cheers. Some passengers cried, others clapped. A few simply sat frozen in disbelief, but they were alive. David removed his headset slowly. Stanton reached over and gripped his hand. "We wouldn't be here without you." David offered a tired smile. "We got lucky, and just in time." Outside, camera crews were already waiting behind the security barriers. Elena's live stream had brought the world to their doorstep. When the emergency slides deployed, rescue teams assisted passengers, who now descended with stories they couldn't wait to tell. As David stepped off the aircraft last, his arm wrapped protectively around Monica and Jade. Reporters shouted his name. "Mr. Anderson, how did you stay calm? Did you know you were saving 300 lives? Will you sue the airline?" Before he could answer, a new commotion erupted behind him. Cynthia Monroe was being led down the steps by Icelandic police. Her wrists were cuffed. The video, the audio, the live stream. Too much to bury. Atlantic Airways had issued an immediate suspension. Icelandic authorities acted on passenger testimonies and assault reports, detaining her for endangering public safety through discriminatory obstruction. Cameras turned. Flashbulbs erupted. Cynthia ducked her head but couldn't escape the storm she helped create. David didn't look at her. He looked at Jade, who watched it all silently and gently squeezed her shoulder. Across the tarmac, a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped a tall man in a tailored coat, flanked by security. "Mr. Anderson?" he asked, approaching with hand extended. "I'm from the United Nations Aviation and Human Rights Task Force. We watch the flight in real time. The Secretary General would like to invite you to serve as a special advisor on both safety systems and anti-discrimination protocols. Your story has reshaped global policy conversations." David paused. Then he nodded. "I'll do it, but only if the conversation doesn't end here." "It won't," the man promised. Nearby, Elena turned off her phone and walked over, extending her hand. "You made history," she said. "The world needed to see it, and now they have." David looked around, at the ambulances, the cameras, the tearful passengers embracing. "No," he said quietly. "We made it." Weeks after the emergency landing, headlines still dominated every news cycle. Flight 2187 had become more than just a near disaster. It was now a global flashpoint for racial injustice in aviation. Then came the twist. A whistleblower from Atlantic Airways leaked internal memos to the Globe Sentinel. The documents revealed that Cynthia Monroe wasn't just a rogue employee. She was the niece of Richard Caldwell, the airline's former vice president of operations. Not only that, but Cynthia had racked up 7 prior complaints for racially discriminatory behavior. Each one had been quietly dismissed. A memo from 2021 read, "Keep Monroe on international routes. Optics matter. She's family." Public outcry was immediate. Social media erupted with fury. Activists called for a federal investigation. Within days, Congress convened an emergency hearing titled "Bias at 30,000 Feet, Systemic Racism in Commercial Aviation." David was asked to testify. He declined. "I wasn't the voice that needed to be heard," he told the panel. Instead, Monica took the stand. She stepped up to the microphone, her posture steady, her voice clear. "My daughter, Jade, is 14. She built a rescue drone that's already saved lives in disaster zones. That flight was supposed to be a celebration. Instead, it became a lesson." The room fell silent. She bled, right there in her seat, while the lead attendant walked away. "Why? Because we didn't look like first class." Monica's voice wavered, then steadied again. "I remember Cynthia's words. Stay in your place. I remember the laughter when my husband tried to help. And I remember how no one stood up until they were afraid they might die too." She paused, looking out over the silent chamber. If my daughter had learned to stay quiet and fly like they wanted her to, she might have stayed silent all her life. She might have thought her voice didn't matter, that she didn't matter. Monica took a breath, then added, "And if my husband hadn't spoken up, if he'd been escorted off that plane a few minutes sooner, there would be no survivors sitting in this room." Gasps, audible emotion, even a few tears on the panel. The chairwoman leaned forward. "Mrs. Anderson, what do you want us to change?" Monica answered without hesitation. "Everything." The hearing ended with a unanimous vote to initiate a full audit of airline staff conduct policies, reporting systems, and federal oversight structures. Cynthia's trial was pending. Atlantic Airways leadership had all resigned, but something deeper had shifted. The world had listened. And it wasn't finished. 1 year later, the gate sign at JFK read, Atlantic 001, Inaugural Equity Flight. It was the first flight of a new initiative, an international campaign led by the United Nations and global airlines to combat racial bias in aviation. Policies had changed, protocols were rewritten, training manuals were overhauled, and sitting at the center of it all, in row 1A, was the Anderson family. David adjusted his cufflink, glancing over at Monica, who wore the same sapphire blue scarf from that fateful flight, a silent badge of resilience. Jade sat between them, a little taller now, legs crossed, typing quietly on a new laptop. "Working on something?" David asked. Jade smiled. "Yeah, a prototype for a new emergency beacon, one that works even if the main systems fail." Monica kissed her daughter's forehead. "Just don't design anything that scares pilots." The flight attendant approached, beaming. "Mr. and Mrs. Anderson, Ms. Jade, it's truly an honor to have you aboard today." David stood, offering his hand. "And you are?" The woman gestured toward the cockpit. "Captain Lillian Mabane, first black woman to lead Atlantic Airways International Fleet. Today, I fly because of you." David blinked. Lillian added with a grin, "Captain Zero, right? That simulator trick from '07? I watched that video 100 times during training." David laughed, glad it helped. The boarding finished. The safety demonstration concluded. As the plane began to taxi, a quiet buzz filled the cabin. Not of fear, but of anticipation. Then, as the aircraft accelerated down the runway, a voice came over the intercom. "Good morning, passengers. This is your captain speaking. Today we fly not just across the Atlantic, but into a new era. With us on board is a family whose courage changed our skies forever. Please join me in welcoming the Andersons." Spontaneous applause erupted. Some passengers stood to clap. Others simply nodded in respect. Phones recorded the moment. A few even wiped tears. David looked out the window as the wheels left the tarmac. The sky was bright, cloudless, open. He leaned back, let the silence sink in, then whispered, "Now they'll listen." Beside him, Jade turned from the window, eyes shining. "Not just listen," she said, voice steady. "They'll learn from us." And with that, Flight 001 soared higher, not just toward another destination, but toward a world rewritten